Hello and welcome to the Pirates Fan Forum here on DK Pittsburgh Sports. I'm your host, Gary Morgan. With me, as always, my good friend Jim Stam. How you doing, brother?
Doing all right, man. I think this is going to be a more of a fun show than sitting and just talking about the Pirates and all their problems. We're gonna talk about Cutch and the Hall of Fame. We're gonna talk about Skenes and Rookie of the Year, and just let's go light today because I think these are all interesting topics that we're gonna do today.
Yeah, I mean, we may or may not get into a little bit of current day bashing of at least one department on this team, right?
Sure.
So we'll see how it goes, how it rolls, but yeah, like we promised, we're gonna definitely finish up our conversation on Cutch and the Hall of Fame. We gave you like a little bit of flavor for that last week. Jim put up a poll question. A lot of you put some really good contributions together for that. I've got some comps pulled together I want to go through. I've got some general stats I want to talk about. You know, I'm not even saying we have to vote today, but I think we're going to run another poll and say, did we sway you in either direction? We'll see if the results hold firm next week, you know, because this whole exercise has swayed me a little bit. You know, I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Well, and we'll get into the poll specifics, but if that was any indication, it's pretty much dead even, split down the middle on yes and no. So maybe there's some movement there one way or the other. And I'm going to go pros and cons. So yeah. So let's get into Skenes. What do you think?
Yeah, Skenes. All right. First, I think like I want to talk about something I'm finding distasteful, and I blame Major League Baseball for it. I hate watching fans of baseball in general, or the Pirates, or Paul Skenes, openly wishing that this kid would tumble to third in this race. I hate that baseball's put that on the plate. I always hated it. You know, I called that out when they first introduced this gem. It was something I didn't want to see, that aspect of it. I just want this kid to win it, and I want to be happy as hell for him. That's all I want. I don't want to think about team control when I have a guy going for a major award like that.
Yeah, and you know, unfortunately, it can affect certain organizations and franchise way more than others. You know what I'm saying? Just as far as how many years of service time and control you get out of the guy. So Pirates luck he'll come in second, and you know there will be the fallout from that. It seems to be going Jackson Merrill's way lately, though, doesn't it?
I think in the betting world it is, but I don't see it happening. I think Paul Skenes is going to win it. I think Paul Skenes winning it, just reading context clues, is really what the baseball world wants to happen. And you know, maybe that's my Pirates black and gold colored glasses speaking, but it feels to me like Major League Baseball wants Paul Skenes thrown into everything, whether it's too early or not. And I don't see any world in which he's performed this way and doesn't get the award that they all wanted to hand him before he even teed off.
Yeah, I can personally see it going either way, and I think that the thing that bothers me, you talked about what bothers you about just the Skenes thing, is the thing that bothers me is like Paul Skenes seems to be getting punished for not being an everyday player. You know, because you keep hearing that. Well, he's not an everyday player, and that if I've got to go one way or the other, you know, you'll hear a pundit say, "Well, I'll go with the everyday player." It's not his fault. I mean, if you're going to start judging things that way, then make it Rookie of the Year pitcher and Rookie of the Year everyday player, because what's ending up happening too is things are getting shifted a little bit because the Padres are in a playoff race, right?
Yeah.
So it all seems bigger when Jackson Merrill does something because of the current situation that they're in.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard that, but I think a lot of those arguments they're more reserved for MVP. Rookie of the Year
Oh,
doesn't
sure.
Rookie of the Year shouldn't have anything to do with team performance. In fact, an awful lot of the time, Rookie of the Year is going to be on a team that probably has very recently sucked because there's a good shot that's a really, really high draft pick coming in, right? So, I mean, I would
I
think
just don't I
think you
don't like
eliminate that possibility unless you're the Dodgers who just wait till they're 27 and debut them.
well, yeah. I mean, the Dodgers just seem to crap those guys out. So I don't know how they do it, but I just look at it like because I keep seeing it is like, oh, he's been such an important player for them down the stretch, and they're going to make the playoffs. And I'm thinking, well, if that's the case, what about Paul Skenes playing on a crappier team? Shouldn't that matter some too? You know what I mean? Like he probably should be sitting at 13-2, 14-2, something like that. Um,
Yeah.
the team has hurt him in that regard.
The numbers speak for themselves as far as what he's done. Nobody's fooled. Especially in this analytical world, everyone sees the underlying stats too. This
Right.
isn't about luck. This isn't about, him pitching poorly and that's why he got 2 losses. It's not it has nothing to do with that. Everyone knows what's going on and everyone sees it. My problem with like Jackson Merrill being like, I guess, anointed is I'm not sure how much more impressive he's really been than Jackson Churios, for one thing, if you really
Mhm.
want to go with a position player. I can honestly say Brian Reynolds had a more impressive rookie season in 2019. And
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
think
I don't even think he finished top 5. So,
right.
I'm going with Skenes. It's definitely the more remarkable performance. Um, you may think that Jackson Merrill is going to be a great player. I think he really could be. But I also can look at him and I can say, I definitely think another rookie will duplicate that performance very soon, maybe even next year. No
Sure.
one's going to do what Paul Skenes is doing again for a decade, maybe 2.
Right. I think when you look at it from this is what I try to break it down to is like since Paul Skenes has stepped on the mound on May, whatever that was, he's essentially been either the best pitcher in baseball or the second best, depending on how you want to look at it. Like to me, that's the argument. Like forget even the historical stuff that Paul Skenes' name is attached to. It really just comes down to, man, he just stepped on a mound and became one of the top 2 player pitchers in baseball, starting pitchers.
I mean, I may be able to just say I think this argument begins and ends right here. I bet Jackson Merrill's not even top 10 in the MVP vote. I bet Paul Skenes is top 3 in the Cy Young vote. I mean,
Could
and
be.
to me, that's rookie of the year, man. Like,
Yeah,
I think that's the way it's going to go. I think the betting line is one thing, but I think that's more a lot of the betting world is located on the West Coast. So for one thing, they've got a lot more access to what he's doing over there,
sure.
and I think it's more of a nightly adjustment basis you get from an everyday player as opposed to a guy who's going once every 6 days.
Yeah, and I think too, like, and I'll end it on this, and we can go to break. But if you look at you could almost foresee this happening, where in like 12 years you're looking back and you're like, how did Paul Skenes not win Rookie of the Year? And you're like, who did he lose it to? And you're like, Jackson Merrill?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, and I don't mean that because the kid
No,
has
it's going to
been
be like Sean Dunston. Yeah, I know what you mean.
right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Like how did that happen? And I could foresee that. And I'm not like Jackson Merrill's having a really good year. He's moved positions. He's playing center field.
Sure. I don't want to
But
denigrate him either. He's done well.
right, right. Yeah. But I could also see that scenario where you're just looking back on and going like, how in the hell did that happen?
Yeah, man. Hey,
So
so let's take our break. Let's come back. Let's do some Cutch.
At DK Pittsburgh Sports, we take pride in coverage that connects our city's fans to their favorite teams. Now, that connection's stronger than ever. Introducing our all-new state-of-the-art app. Find expert inside reporting and original podcasts. Check live box scores. Track the latest stats. Chat it up with our community of thousands of fans, all in one place. The new app from DK Pittsburgh Sports. Coverage that connects.
All right, welcome back to the Pirates Fan Forum here on DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. So, Jim, we ran a poll, so we've got that to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
And we should probably start there, because before we start presenting evidence, let's talk about the baseline of where we landed, right? 340 sure. Votes. 52.1% said yes, Andrew McCutchen is a Hall of Famer. 47.9% said no, Andrew McCutchen is not a Hall of Famer. We wanted it simple. We didn't leave room for maybes. We didn't leave room for if he does this, right. So we asked for some opinions underneath, and I knew it was going to be tight. I actually thought it would go in the other direction, though. I thought more people would lean no. People tend to be really stingy about the Hall of Fame, probably more stingy than the voters.
True. Especially with all the nonsense that goes with the Hall of Fame now, with cheating and steroids and all the allegations and stuff. It makes it such a messy conversation. At least we don't have that with Cutch.
Right. And I actually think like that kind of goes into the case for Cutch, because I think he would be a very low risk selection. I think he gets on that ballot. I think he's got a good chance to overachieve on the votes just because so many people like him. And you can justify a lot of the numbers when we start getting into it. So let's get started.
I mean, like you mentioned about the like and dislike. Baseball's weird about that stuff. If you're liked, it helps. If you're not, look, David Ortiz is in the Hall of Fame. Yeah. And he's got all kinds of stuff swirling around him about allegations of PEDs. He got in. Barry Bonds is sitting there with no chance, so it does play a factor.
Yeah. And I mean, I think I heard I think it was Lanny Ferteri years ago talked about he'd always go and pitch for like the veteran guys that needed to come up on that veterans committee. And somebody asked him why, and he was just like, because somebody has to. You have to go to bat for them. Like, a lot of people don't recognize people from this market. I remember even Ed Bouchette used to say that from the Post-Gazette when he was trying to get the veteran Steelers in. A lot of people didn't notice them, or they think there's too many of them, so that's unfair to some of them. So he keeps going and fighting for them. That may have to do something like that for Cutch, to get him noticed, but he's going to have a leg up because people like him from everywhere.
Yeah, it helps right off the bat, at least. So where do you want to start with this? Because there's a lot.
Let's read off just some of his overall accolades, right? 5-time All-Star, 4 straight Silver Slugger awards, Gold Glove in 2012. He was the MVP in the National League in 2013. He has a career line of 274, 368, 463. At his peak, he was arguably the best player in the National League from 2010 to 2015. McCutchen accumulated 35.4 BWAR and had a 146 OPS plus. His 35.4 BWAR only lands behind Joey Votto over that time period. And I think Joey Votto is pretty close to a clinch too.
So, and what years was that, Gary? That was
2010 to 2015.
Okay.
Did half a decade.
Yeah, let me I'll jump in on that because I have something that caught my attention. If you take his 2012 to 2015 seasons, so 4 seasons in there, he had a better WAR, 26.2, than Buster Posey, Paul Goldschmidt, or Joey Votto, and the only one in the majors who had more WAR over that time was Mike Trout.
Wow. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
He's definitely getting named with some of these bigger names now. You're starting to hear like his 8 seasons of 20 plus home runs with the Pirates is second only to Willie Stargell. I mean, like that crazy stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
He's one of just 12 players in MLB history with 1,100 runs, 1,000 walks, 2,000 hits, 1,000 RBI, 300 homers, 400 doubles, and 200 stolen bases. 7 of those players are already in Cooperstown. So,
yeah,
good company, right? You got to make a case, and it's got to be a little bit of a circuitous route, but it's there.
Yeah, like that's the weird thing about Cutch is like, look, people are going to say, well, he just wasn't great for long enough, right? And
Sure.
I get that. You definitely want to be talking probably more than 4 or 5 years of someone's absolute peak. But then he's got those unique combinations of numbers that tell you how special of a player he was. Just like you mentioned. So he in a way falls into this weird category, and then the trick becomes is you're weighing like his greatness period against like maybe him just compiling numbers as he went along. So he's also a compiler.
Yeah, right.
And
No,
so
that's
those
fair.
are
There's no way around that for sure.
Mhm. Yeah, so it becomes really tough because you're looking at it like, man, that's some really exclusive company. But then when you look at it and you look at the things maybe he stood out during certain years, yes, he has the MVP year, but he never really led the league in anything other than I think maybe one year he led the league in on base percentage, maybe in
Sure.
hits one year. So like, granted, he's got an MVP, he's got a Gold Glove, things of that nature. But then you start looking into different things like comparisons, right? Like how do we
I got
compare
comparisons
him?
lined up for days, buddy.
All right. All right. Well, go ahead if you want to. I will say let me just get to before we forget. I do want to get to a couple of the comments on the poll.
Yeah, for sure. Hammer some.
Yeah. So Connor Williams says, I go back and forth. A bunch of accolades and a member of some reasonably exclusive statistical groups that not many players who played clean, which is a good point, and we brought it up, have trouble getting in the hall if they're a part of, but only spending half his career in center field makes it hard to make that kind of case. So a lot of what we were saying. He also does bring up the fact that then Cutch did end up switching positions, but
yeah.
Let's see who else we've got. Let's go with Jack Micah. He said voted no, but if he keeps playing and helps them get to the postseason and win at least one series, that'll help his chances. Yeah, that would really, really help.
Yeah, some postseason success would definitely add a little bit. You got to have something, right? You know, he's not going to get like an NLCS MVP at this point or something, but being part of a team.
Yeah, getting back, I think like this did surprise me because a lot of times when it gets close on guys, they'll do like, well, how did he do in the postseason? Almost as if like that's part of like their tiebreaker. They want to see. And man, it just sucks for Cutch because he's only had 54 at bats. And the 54 at bats he's had, Gary, he has no extra base hits and 1 RBI.
Yeah, his back was all tore up for a bunch of them too
in the postseason. So that really sucks.
Yeah. Well, let's hope that someday he gets back there and he's not a complete shell of his former self. You know, hopefully he can do something. Let's do a couple comps and then let's flip back into some more comments because I know there's one from James Littleton in there where he just kind of cut to the chase that I think you'd probably appreciate if you didn't already see it.
Very James-like,
too. This one is very recent. So this one should be fresh in your memory. Joe Mauer. Okay. WAR, Cutch 49.6, Joe Mauer 55.2. OPS plus, Cutch 127, Mauer 124. OPS 837 for Cutch. He's always going to be first. Mauer's always going to be second. I think I can get rid of that. Okay. 827. Home runs 319 to 143. Hits 2149 to 2123. RBI 1095 to 923. Runs 1238 to 1018. Stolen bases 219 to 52. The only place Mauer has him beat is average 306 versus 274. But Cutch has him like lapped in home runs 319 to 143. That to me is a pretty strong comp. If Joe Mauer is in the Hall of Fame, it's hard for me not to count Cutch.
Yeah, what I was trying to pull up here real quick is like, how long did he play catcher? Because obviously they switched him off, right? He
started bouncing around first base.
Yeah, let me see. When did Joe Mauer stop catching? Looks like in 2013 he stopped because of a serious concussion. He's the only catcher to win 3 batting titles. So I have to refresh my memory a little bit about him, because I knew that that was part of his case, was that he was part catcher during that. But that's a good comp. It's a good way to start, at least.
Yeah, I thought it was close anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, it made me think.
Who else you got?
Scott Rowland. Pretty recent as well. Now, he's got Cutch destroyed in WAR, and I think it's because he played a premium defensive position a lot longer than Cutch.
Right.
70.1. OPS plus is 127 versus 122. OPS 831 versus 855. Home runs 319 to 316. He just passed Scott Rowland. Hits 2149 to 2077. Average 274 to 281. RBIs, Rowland has 1287. Cutch has 1095. Runs 1238 to 1211. Stolen bases 219 to 118. That's a lot closer than the WAR makes it look like it's gonna be. Again, I think that's about the premium position more than necessarily what he's done there. But offensively, man, they line up.
Yeah, that surprises me. He's that close. I would have thought that if you'd have told me you were comping those two and I had to just make a quick guess, I would have said that Scott Rowland probably lapped him a little bit more than that.
Yeah, I think they're a lot closer than I thought going into it for sure. That blew me away, actually.
Yeah.
You want a weird one? A weird old one?
Yeah.
Max Carey.
Oh, my goodness.
On WAR, 55.6 for him. Cutch has the 49.6. OPS plus of 127. Max Carey's 108, which, wow. OPS 837 to 747. Home runs 319 to 70. Hits, Max Carey's got 2665, so he's up there, pretty good. Average 285. RBIs, Cutch has got him crushed, 1095 to 802. Runs 1238 to 1545. Stolen bases, this is where Max Carey just laps the field 3 times over. 219 to 738. So old-timey Hall of Famer, but Cutch's numbers stack up there too, I think.
It's interesting, yeah. And sometimes obviously with some of the older guys, I think they look at that a little differently. But I never thought to go and do any kind of I got a comp that I think is like spot on.
How about it?
So let me do this before you steal it, just in case you have it, because this is a good one. Bernie Williams.
Okay.
All right. So full disclosure, Bernie Williams, he was on the first ballot and got like 10% of the votes, made it to the second ballot, didn't get elected. Second ballot, he only got like 3.9%, which you have to have 5% to stay on the ballot to still be eligible. So he had to wait for Veterans Committee way down the road. Gary, this is good, man. So they both played center field, right? Even though Cutch halfway through or whatever moved off of center field. Bernie Williams, Cutch, at this point, have both played 16 seasons. Bernie Williams, Andrew McCutchen have the exact same WAR after 16 seasons at 49.6. I'll go like you did. I'll do Cutch and then Bernie. Cutch 127 OPS plus. Bernie Williams 125 OPS plus. Home runs 319 to 287. RBI 1,095 to 1,257. Doubles 429 to 449. Triples 50 triples to 55 triples.
Wow.
Hits 2,149 for Cutch, 2,336 hits for Bernie Williams. Stolen bases, Cutch has got him, 219 to 147. Batting average, Cutch is 274, Bernie 297. Runs 1,238 to 1,366. Walks 1,115 to 1,069. And slugging 463 to 477.
Wow.
So they have pretty much, like, it even got into the position they were playing. So it was an extra help there, like it wasn't with Scott Rowland. So what you're looking at there is, now the beauty for Cutch is he's not technically done yet. So anything he does here on out should help him. But Bernie Williams, I think, is much of a, and they only have like 80 different, there's an 80 at plate appearance difference between them for their career at this point.
Wow. Pretty close.
Isn't it?
Yeah,
now,
pretty close.
Let me get real depressing on you, because you realize how much some of this matters about just where do you end up playing in your career, right?
Yeah.
So clearly, Bernie Williams was in a much better situation. Played it with tons of talent, guys in the lineup that could get on for him, guys behind him. Bernie Williams has 465 postseason at-bats.
Yeah, right.
Compared to Andrew McCutchen's 54. And
yeah, he's also maybe a little bit of a victim of the 70s Steelers syndrome, because there's too many Hall of Famers from that club, you almost don't want to give it to the star,
right. Right. Yeah, because he's almost like the forgotten guy there, right?
Right.
Now Yankees fans really appreciate him and understand his contributions, but both Bernie and Andrew, analytically, with defensive analytics, yes, they both won Gold Gloves. I think Bernie won 4, but the analytics don't love them, either of them in the outfield. They actually kind of hurt them. But Bernie did end up with an 850 OPS and those 465 at-bats in the postseason. So that was a lot of numbers I just vomited on you, but it was so, everything was so close, dude. Like,
no, it's a great comp for real. I have one more, Tony Perez. This is a 70s Red. Okay, I don't know if you know who he is, but
yeah.
WAR, he is 53.9. OPS plus 127 to 122. OPS 831 to 804. Home runs 319 to 379. Very comparable. Average 274, 279. RBIs on the Big Red Machine 1095 to 1652.
Wow.
Runs 1238 to 1272. Stolen bases 219 to 49.
God, that's a
So,
lot of RBIs.
yeah.
Holy smokes.
So, but they're right there, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think like he lines up with a lot more players than you'd really want. I could go further, but I think we've read off enough numbers. I've got Yogi Berra. I've got Ernie Banks in a way he kind of lines up next to in certain areas.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, there's a lot of ways that you can kind of go with trying to sell Cutch. Do you think we've done anything to move the needle, or do you think it's time to read James so he can just slap everyone in the face with reality?
You know what? Let me bring up this point, Gary, and I don't think that the writers will ever consider this, but maybe they should. Is that Andrew McCutchen has been one of the only reasons the Pirates have made the playoffs in the last 40 years. Like it coincided exactly with his rise, and they got back to the playoffs for that small stretch. And they haven't sniffed it since. They didn't sniff it before then for 2 decades. And I'm like, that's to me is just as impressive as getting into the playoffs and performing well, because you are overcoming so much more than most guys have to do in the situations that they're in that we're talking about.
Yeah. I mean, I came away from this feeling like, before I hear James Littleton put me in my place, I came away from it kind of feeling like I think he's borderline. I think if I take into all the outside things like you were just discussing with, what he means to the city of Pittsburgh, what he meant to this franchise, the era he's coming out of where he may not have as much competition as you might think because of the mess that some of the guys, like, let's say Ryan Braun's numbers kick his butt. Well, Ryan Braun ain't getting in. So, like, do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, he would have actually been a good one to look at, actually.
Yeah. So I'm saying, like, Andrew's got himself a case here, and if he really manages to play another season or two and can hit 15, 20 home runs and pile on those numbers a little bit more, he's going to be harder to keep out than you think.
Well, that's what's really interesting is like he's not done yet. He's at least going to play one more year. But let's just say he somehow for the next year or two adds 30 home runs to that total, puts him up at 350. Things like that. That's starting to get into some more rare air there. So, and it put his WAR over that 50 mark threshold. So, it's not a complete pitcher. We'll see how much longer he can play. And who knows, Gary, he may come out next year and, the drop off be large.
Yeah. It could absolutely be. It could be a drop off the table completely. His leg could blow up. I mean, I'm not wishing any of that on him, but like, it's a reality, right? I mean,
yeah. And I think too, like, what you do start gaining an appreciation of is when you look at Cutch, he's never been in the most ideal situations, and he's still put up those kind of 5-tool numbers. And
right.
to me, that's impressive. I definitely like probably see him in the Bernie Williams. Well, let's put it this way. Somebody mentioned in the comments, Dave Parker should probably be in before Cutch is. He's still sitting there. Dale Murphy hasn't been put in the Hall of Fame. There's a couple other guys that stand out where you're like, you know what? Those guys were 2-time MVPs and, had some very, very, very long stretches of good careers. So
Yeah. I think he's an unfinished story. If he was over right now, I would think that he's a long shot. I do think that if he has a productive season though next year, potentially even more than that, he'll be hard to keep out.
I agree.
Personality, all the story around him, everything like that. James is basically just threw up Hall of Fame statistics. Go ahead and read them off, Jim.
Let me see. First of all, James, always blunt. There are some seriously delusional people responding to this. So I guess that that means that James does not think he is a Hall of Famer. Let me pull up the thing here. All right, my phone's not cooperating. Do you have those numbers pulled?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not sure what they mean though, the black ink and gray ink and all that stuff. But
it's basically okay.
He's basically saying an average Hall of Fame career is 71.7 career WAR. Right?
Yes.
So
I got it pulled up here.
Cutch is obviously not there.
No, but I think too, what you're going to have to start doing with Hall of Famers anymore is you're never going to see all the magical thresholds that you used to with guys, right? Like pitchers are going to have to be judged differently.
For sure, not starting pitchers. Yeah.
Right. And even like 3,000 hits, that's if you were to name, Gary, the guys in baseball right now that have a potential to get to 3,000 hits, it's a real short list. Like
it very much so is.
Those numbers are different these days.
Like, you know how they're starting to just open their minds to letting closers in now more regularly. You know, it's just becoming a thing now, like where Billy Wagner's getting considered, and you know, like you're starting to hear those names now, and they're starting to allow that to happen. Aroldis Chapman, I'm sure, will be up there as far as somebody that likely gets inducted. They're going to have to consider opening the door for regular relievers too. You know, I mean, if starting pitchers are only going to be delivering like 5 innings, you know, then you're going to have to start counting those guys that give 2 or 3, you know, 3 or 4 times a week. I think there's going to be a little bit of a clamoring for recognition at some point from certain classes of players that get snubbed year after year for the Hall of Fame. So
yeah, and
we'll see how it all plays out.
Even if you take like, what is it right now? 2 guys in baseball are hitting over 300. You know, like the game is different. Like guys hitting 240 or 250, that's not going to be held against guys like it was 20, 30 years ago where your batting average mattered. So everything's going to have to change. And maybe it already is to an extent.
So where do you fall right now?
Because of that Bernie Williams comp, it's got me pretty convinced he's a no. But I'll leave the door open for the next year or two and then come back and look at it. And hopefully, Gary, we're still doing this and we can just flat out do that ourselves. So what about you?
I mean, I plan on still being alive, so we'll probably still be doing it.
Well, that's good.
But, no, I think I probably would say he would get snubbed right now. But I think he probably has enough steam left in him to push himself over the edge into plausible territory. So
yeah, I think I looked at him today. I think he's got 100 hits on the year and 101. Hit 20 home runs. You do that for a couple more years, you've now put yourself up near 2,400 hits.
Yeah,
350 home runs, things of that nature. So, and I wonder if he's aware of it, if he cares. That'd be another thing. Is I just wonder.
I don't know. I think I almost think he has to care. Look at the way he reacted to like getting 300 out of the way this year, and how it messed with his head at the beginning of the season. You know, until he finally got that stupid hit.
Right.
Then I mean, so I think he obviously cares.
And it's funny when you look at numbers from a historical perspective is, we're so used to seeing home runs, but then you look at it, and if I remember correctly, when he hit the 300 number, he's still only there's still only 160 dudes who've ever hit 300 home runs in baseball.
Right.
Like it's incredibly small. As much as we pay attention to baseball, I would have guessed it was way higher than that. It's still an incredibly inclusive club.
Yeah, very much so, man. Let's take a quick break. Let's come back. Let's talk a little bit about Brian Reynolds potentially moving to first base, and let's do call your shot. It's a Yark dream show. That's what it is.
And it's my position, so I love this.
Nice.
At DK Pittsburgh Sports, we take pride in coverage that connects our city's fans to their favorite teams. Now, that connection's stronger than ever. Introducing our all-new state-of-the-art app. Find expert inside reporting and original podcasts. Check live box scores. Track the latest stats. Chat it up with our community of thousands of fans, all in one place. The new app from DK Pittsburgh Sports. Coverage that connects.
All right, welcome back to the Pirates Fan Forum here on DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. I am Gary Morgan again. This is Jim Stam. If you're new here, please hit the like button, leave us a comment, subscribe to the show. Don't miss it. It's pretty easy. It lives up here forever, so it doesn't matter if you can get here live or not. It's
for better or worse. For better or worse, it's permanent.
Right. So Brian Reynolds moving to first base, it's not just an Adam Yarkovsky fever dream anymore. It really could be coming to a baseball field near you very soon. He reportedly has a first baseman's mitt that he purchased. He has apparently been yammering to the coach for 3 years about wanting to do so. And I can back up some of that. Last couple of years, I've heard it as well. And Brian is not a person that likes to be okay at anything. And I think that's what he feels he is in the outfield right now. So I do think he probably has been bringing it up. And it's an organizational need, man, and one that you could honestly say, if he can handle the position, is competently filled. And he's an athlete. I think he'll probably handle it. What do you think, Jim? You're the first base critic.
Yeah, I think he would do just fine there. He's pushing 30 years of age. You mentioned a little bit about how he's just okay out in left field. Yeah, when I watch Brian Reynolds, I know defensive metrics also hate him too, but I think he's worked hard to be an average left fielder, and I think it has shown up with his arm and his positioning. He may not be able to track down everything and anything, but I don't see him as being a bad left fielder. I know some people
I think he's an okay left fielder. I don't think he wants to be okay at anything. Yeah. He wants to be good, great, and I think he thinks he could at first base.
Yeah, and look, if you're gonna start working on it pregame and through the off season, that's perfect. That's the way I would ideally want someone to do that. Sure. I worry just about what the outfield would look like after that, because I'm not quite sure what we're doing in left or right field at that point. I know we have some candidates, but as far as him being able to do it, Gary, I think he would really probably excel over there.
I could say a competent corner outfielder will cost a hell of a lot less than an upgrade at first base. So, I mean, I would do that in a heartbeat if that's something Brian's really open to. I think it's something that they should consider, because if not, he's going to end up occupying the DH role a whole hell of a lot when Andrew McCutchen's done, because they're, in the outfield, he's slowing down already. Mm-hmm. And there was a ball just the other night in St. Louis, he should have gotten to. Nick York would have gotten to it. Billy Cook would have gotten to it. If I'm honest, Brian De La Cruz would have gotten to it. So, and whatever you think of them, they've got great arms. Brian De La Cruz, Billy Cook. I think we'll find that Nick York does as well. O'Neill certainly does, and I think he's come along pretty quickly out there in center field.
I would agree with you.
I think, honestly, it would be a good move for the organization, a smart move for the organization, a good use of their investment that they made in Brian Reynolds, because I think it'll keep him fresher too.
Yeah, that's what I was going to go to next, actually. Yep. Brian Reynolds is we're so offensively challenged that Brian Reynolds is more important than maybe he would be on another team, right? So anything you can do to just keep the mileage off of him and let him play first base, which obviously is going to be easier on your body. I think it's good. I mean, they've still got how many years left on his deal, and it would be nice, Gary, just for once in the last 2 decades to be able to point at first base and say, "Oh, we actually have a hitter there."
Well, he's a switch hitter. He wants to play every single day, which is why he wants to make a move like this. Because they don't let him in the outfield, and his body doesn't let him. So I just think it's gonna happen. I'm pretty convinced that's the route they're gonna try to take with him. That said, I'm not convinced the people making those decisions will be here. So
yeah, that's
kind of hard to start guessing about what plans they're making for next year when I'm not 100% sure who's going to be making said plans. It's one thing though that is really interesting about that is that it's Brian's want. He's the one who wants to do it, and that probably would carry over. Because, again, I do believe it makes good organizational sense, and I don't think they'll find an upgrade on the market that will come here that would be better than him at first.
That's just it. You're back to looking at Rowdy Tellez or Carlos Santana.
Yeah. A much better shot of landing someone like if he doesn't get a mega deal, but he probably will, but like landing a guy like Tyler O'Neill, who just went on a showcase contract and tore it up in Boston.
Right.
That said, you don't have the green monster for him to hit over either. You've got one of the deepest left fields in Major League Baseball. So why the hell would he come here? But still, like, it leaves you a cheaper option to fill corner outfielder than a first base, and I think you can get something good there.
Yeah, and it would be interesting to see how guys like Nick York do the rest of the way too. Guys that they have up, Billy Cook, Nick York, just to see if there's any chance of any of those guys, them feeling more comfortable, maybe putting them out there on a routine basis.
Yeah, right. Hey, let's do call your shot, man, because this one's gonna set us off. All right, Call Your Shot is brought to you by our good friends over at shopyins.com. Check out everything they've got over there for all the black and gold. They got some cool Steelers concepts over there, Penguins concepts, Pirate stuff, our stuff. Check it out. Good stuff, good people. And this week, Call Your Shot is from SC Tom on X, and he says, hate to say this, but when the autopsy of this season is completed, Bednar will be the number one reason progress has not been made. He is more responsible than Charrington's poor free agents and development issues and Shelton's poor managing. I thought that was an interesting thought because David Bednar has been directly involved in an awful lot of the stink this year, right?
Yeah.
And I started myself really need to look into this bullpen in general because he may be the face of it because he's been the star of it. He was supposed to be the leader of it, right? This would be like Mark the Shark going belly up mid-season, right?
Yep. Exactly.
So, he stunk. So I went out and looked because we all I mean everybody who considers themselves to be a knower of ball thought this bullpen was going to kick ass this year. And it hasn't. Every single one of us was wrong. I've got some damning stats about this bullpen in general, Jim. It's disgusting. It's historically bad. Remember that one show we did about the hitting that we'll do again because once again they have reached the same territory. But
good news, they've done that part again, so we can revisit.
I think we named that show historically bad. But
so we can just add bullpen to it now.
Yeah, so historically bad, right? This Pirates bullpen has lost 32 games. Only 4 teams are worse. Their ERA of 4.67 clocks in as the 4th worst in baseball. They've had 67 save opportunities and only managed to convert 38 of them, Jim.
Good God.
In fact, only 4 teams had more opportunities than the Pirates in those situations. 12 converted more.
Jeez.
I mean, I could almost stop there. But I won't because they deserve to have it all thrown out there.
Sure.
How about their 141 whip? 3rd worst in baseball.
Oh, that is disgusting.
Opposing batting average is 252, 7th worst. 238 walks has them 6th worst in baseball. Strikeouts 546, 19th in the game, and that's with Aroldis Chapman on your team.
Right.
We're actually lucky it hasn't been worse, Jim. Their 54 home runs they've given up. There's only 5 teams who've given up fewer.
And you can name a couple of them right off the bat because
it could have been a lot
awful.
worse, though, is the point, right?
Yeah.
281 earned runs, only 4 teams worse. Runs at there's 317 of those. There's only 3 teams that performed worse than that. 524 hits, only 8 teams gave up more. And the really gross thing, Jim, I thought, okay, let me check into all that because maybe they're just being overtaxed, right? Maybe that's the problem. They're just facing too many. Nope. They nowhere near the worst in baseball. In fact, they've used them. There's only 10 teams who have asked their bullpen to throw fewer innings. Imagine if the starters were even a touch less good. I mean, that's historically bad. I don't have an answer for it. But here's the ERAs under this regime. From 2020, 4.62. This is all bullpen, by the way.
Okay.
2021, 23rd in baseball, 4.55. 2022, 29th in baseball, 4.72. 2023, 19th in baseball, 4.27. Look like we're moving somewhere, right? 2024, boom, 27th in baseball, 4.67. I mean, like,
it's almost hard to believe because when I start naming guys in my head,
a lot of these guys are coming back, man.
Well, that's where my head was going too, which was like, you know, these aren't guys that are just jettison guys that you know, we're not talking the Neverauskas of the world. These are guys that have to come back and actually pitch.
Yeah. That's scary, right?
How is it that bad?
I don't know, man. Like I'm looking at like historically bad Pirates teams, like 1954. They lost 101 games. There was only 16 teams in baseball. They finished 13th in baseball with a 4.55 ERA in their bullpen. And remember how bullpens were used back then. There's probably only like 4 guys.
Right. Right. So it's not even the same setup.
Right. 1952, they lost 112 games. 13th in baseball, 4.15. 1985, 104 games they lost.
That was a brutal
394
year.
ERA though, 20th in baseball, and 29 for 29 with saves.
That was when little Jimmy was 10 years old and first getting introduced to how my baseball life was going to go root for the Pirates.
He was molded to it.
Molded by it. Look, back to the call your shot, which is, look, David Bednar is going to be the poster child, right?
Yeah.
He's the closer. He's from Pittsburgh. It's highly publicized. I did look and I said, man, he's got 8 losses on the year just by himself. If you're a closer and you got 8 losses already or at all, you have not had a good year. So, I guess it begs the question is what worries me, Gary, is that they will look at, let's say everything stays the same regime wise, is that they will look at this and go, you know what? This was just an aberration, a total blip on the radar. We think we can just flush it and we're going to bring all these guys back and it'll be better.
I mean, I think I'm encouraged by Carmen Majinski, Dennis Santana. I think Kyle Nicholas showed us some good stuff this year. Colin Holderman has had a really rough stretch, but listen to his numbers for real. 3.21 ERA, 136 whip, 226 average against. He's been okay. It's really he's just had a bad stretch, and his big claim to fame is that he's had 5 save opportunities and blown every single one of them. That's
bad.
Yeah, but that's what happens. Everything else he's done is fine except for blowing all those saves, and then what happened to his confidence after that, right?
Right. Yeah.
And then you got Aroldis Chapman, who, I think most people would probably tell you has been their best reliever that haven't been paying attention and saw Dennis Santana as a person. But Aroldis Chapman, a 4.11 ERA, man. He's got 9 saves. He's blown 5 of them.
I didn't know his ERA was that high.
He's got a whip of 142. He's got 92 Ks. He's walked 39 guys.
I knew the whip would be high, obviously, but I still would have thought his ERA would have been.
Yeah,
if you had me
that's
guess,
a guy I would sit there and tell you, yeah, I want him back. But look at those numbers. That's not good. That's not what you want. That's not the goal. Dennis Santana's been arguably their very best. 102 whip, 214 average against, 275 ERA, 45 Ks, 10 walks. He's been lights out.
Yeah, he had that. I think it was his first outing was really bad.
Yeah.
And then since then. And then you got guys like Baraki, who looks like a shell of himself.
Sure. Baraki's all about injury, though. It's not even worth discussing what he's done this year because
the point I'm trying to get to is are they going to look at this whole group collectively and say, nope, we're okay. We'll be okay. And what did we do about Chapman?
I don't know. I looked at those numbers. Because I wrote an article today on Steel City Pirates about the bullpen, so I didn't just come up with all those numbers in my head. Well, yeah, go to steelcitypirates.com. But the reason that I was struck by Aroldis Chapman is because those aren't the numbers that were in my head.
Mm-mm.
That's not what I feel like I've been watching. I felt like I've been watching a dominant pitcher, but I really think with Aroldis Chapman, it's just he's either unhittable or he has a game where just everything falls apart. It's over. Right. Next game he comes in. He's back to what he was and he's doing fine. He happened to have 3 of those games back to back to back. And it happened to be in the middle of Bednar kind of crippling his way through 19 straight saves. So It felt like, okay, well, good thing we didn't do anything rash, flip-flop them, right? And then it just blew up. There's never been a foothold in this bullpen all year.
Yeah, I think I mentioned this on the last show. I was like, it's a lesson learned for me because it can look real good on paper,
Oh yeah.
and I think it did. And I would have really told you you're nuts if you think they're going to stink this year in the bullpen. And they've flat out stunk for the most part, and it's
Jim,
cost them.
I think I went as far as to say I thought the bullpen had a chance to carry the starting pitching a little bit. I mean, like clearly we were wrong. So it's not like I'm afraid to admit it.
No,
I don't know, even looking at it right now, what they're going to be able to change quickly. I mean, you could say goodbye to David Bednar if you want to. I think that might be a little bit rash, if only because I do think he's probably an adjustment or two away from kind of getting back to what he was at least. Which, even if I truly never really liked him as a closer, and I don't like the closer role anyway, I think he could be a perfectly fine regular reliever, which you need those too. So,
right.
like, I don't want to just cast him off for nothing.
No. I think, if anything, I think he's earned the right to go back into spring training.
Yeah, but he's arbitration now, Jim. So, like,
oh yeah,
he's earned the right to like have the team on the hook for paying him whether he sucks or not. That's the real truth. And he got $4 million this year. If I'm the Pirates, I go and offer less. I offer like 3.5 or something, and I say, take it or we're going to go to arbitration. And if you get a 10% increase, you ain't going to be here long to enjoy it. I mean, like, that's all there is to it.
Yeah,
trade him as soon as he looks decent.
We'll probably have to do something when the offseason rolls around and do maybe like a confidence level of each guy in the bullpen as far as opposed to what they did this year, and where would you put your confidence in them next year, whether it's rebound, maintain, fluke, all that stuff, because you can go down the list and say, I don't know exactly what to expect from most of these guys.
I could make a pretty strong argument that their best bullpen piece this year was Luis Ortiz. And I know he's done well as a starter as well, and I certainly don't want to tell him he can't be, because he's doing it right now. And that's something valuable too. But man, that bullpen missed him. You know, and I understood why he got moved out of it, and I'm glad that he did well, but like the bullpen suffered from him being moved out of there. You got some other things that I think they need to face too. Like, I don't think we understood the Jalen Beeks trade from the very beginning. The results right now could not be more stark.
Right.
I mean, guys like Anthony Murphy and Nola Jeffy and Craig Toth, and
they were sick.
Not that I matter, but I was saying the same thing. Like, that Peralta kid looks like he has really figured it out. And because Ben Cherington felt like, hey, here's a guy that we've got to make a 40-man decision on, and he's in Double-A, he just went with the old-fashioned decision of that's what you do with the guy in Double-A, because he's never going to make it, and I don't want to. Instead of just going, hey, I've jumped guys from Double-A before. Look what this kid's doing. The bullpen sucks. Let's get him up here. Look at what this kid's doing. The Rockies didn't do anything to change him.
No, he's been really impressive. I mean,
eight outings with nothing at all given up. Yeah, he's been great. And a lefty. I mean, come on now.
And Beeks looks like just another guy. That's the problem.
Yeah,
right?
and he has absolutely no team control. You got Peralta for 6 or 7 years. It made zero sense for what this team claims to want to do.
The reason it sucks is obviously it kind of sabotaged their season, but also next year you wonder if you do have to put bullpen up a little bit on the list of things they need. And
you absolutely have to, or you've got to start converting starters. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Like, maybe Johan Oviedo is maybe better suited to come back as a closer. He's got closer stuff. Let him work out his rehab in the bullpen. Maybe you need him to. Maybe you need him to, and it serves another purpose of letting him build his arm strength back up. Maybe that's what you do this year, and then he gets another crack at it in the following year to win a spot, in the rotation. You could do that.
Yeah, he's an interesting guy because he probably would be, in my opinion, someone that might be better suited for those shorter outings where he doesn't have to worry about, starting games and getting off on the right foot and then hitting his wild patches in there. So,
right,
something to think about.
Hey, it'll be interesting. We'll talk about more of the off season in the off season. For now, go enjoy watching the Pirates get swept by St. Louis, everybody, and we'll have the Steelers could be 3-0 this weekend. The Penguins are getting started back up here.
Pitt's 3-0.
Pitt is kicking butt.
Yeah.
Sorry, you West Virginia fans out there.
And the volleyball team's #1. So we at least got some things to latch on to while the Pirates stink, per usual.
That's right. But it's pizza night, and it's time to say goodbye and hello to Ben.
Good talk.
Let's go, Buck!
Yeah, buddy. All right, see you, everybody.